It's hit him on the pad. That must be close. He's given him out. He's gone. Out WWOS. He's got another one.
Hello there, welcome to our preview of the Ashes that you'll see live and exclusive here on Nine's Wide World of Sports. Cannot wait, gets underway Friday and it's going to be a wonderful 5-6 weeks of cricket. Thrilled to be joined by Ian Chappell and Steve O'Keefe. Great to have you with us.
Howdy, how are you?
Now, I know you've seen more Ashes series than most, but is there a little bit
That means I'm old.
Well, no, I wasn't going to say that, Chappell, but is there a little bit of flicker of excitement when Australia line up against England still?
Well, not for me because I'm finished, but I would hope that for all players that all Test matches are just as important as the next. But you understand that Australia versus England is probably because of the history is one that counts for a little extra.
Well, I got the whites on socks, so I'm ready for a call-up if needed.
Yeah.
What's got you excited about this particular Ashes series? They're all anticipated, but there's a bit of extra edge about this one.
I think there is, and I think the public has seen the form of both teams leading up to this Ashes series. Australia, of course, has just come off winning the World Championship against India. They've had a successful 2 years where they've won 4 out of 6 series. They've done extremely well in the subcontinent where we've struggled, although we haven't really cracked that yet. I think the next biggest hurdle, particularly for this team that's ageing, will be their legacy that they leave in England. And they're coming up against, of course, Bazball, as the pundits like to call it. England under Stokes and under McCullum have won 10 out of 13 tests. They're playing aggressive cricket. They're looking to score from ball one. And I think when you look at some of the stats, someone like Ben Duckett, who's been opening the batting for England, he's faced 710 balls as an opening batter and he's only left 8. So that gives you an idea into the intent of this English cricket team, which I don't think in usual times when we watch England play, they've gone about it that way. Generally been a little bit more defensive and tried to build into an innings in a game, but I think we're going to see a different style of cricket from England.
Well, you are pumped up, I can tell.
I've got a lot, yes. I'm excited.
You've got plenty of gold for us. Let's have a look at the schedule. And it's interesting, the condensed nature of this schedule and what it might do from a selection perspective. Edgbaston, the venue from Friday, June 16. But you'll see there, Ian, 5 test matches essentially in a 6-week window, which is, from a selector's perspective, particularly with respect to the fast bowlers, is going to be something to consider.
It's ridiculous, the schedule. I mean, the schedule's been ridiculous for a long time, but that is stupidity. You know, there's not a test played in August, so that tells you how quickly they're playing them. It's a nightmare for all players, both physically and mentally, but particularly the fast bowlers. And I don't think there's any way in the world that either side is going to get through 5 tests using the same bowling players all the way. So I think the extra players are going to come in handy, and that's one thing that'll probably suit Australia.
We're not going back to the rotation days, are we, Steve?
I'd like to think not. However, I do agree with Ian that the scheduling is pretty poor and it's going to be a big ask. Mark Wood, after he played 4 tests in Australia, and he even said himself that he felt exhausted after playing that. I mean, I'm not sure why some of those tests, they ended in 3 days, particularly the one in Hobart, so I'm not sure what he was going on about there. But I think the locks for Australia will include Cummins and Lyon. I think Cummins, it's going to be a big ask for him to play all 5, but I think he's prepared. Listening to his commentary before this test series, he said, look, I'd like to come in under-prepared than over-prepared. He bowled beautifully during the ICC Test Championship. A couple of batters have had some nice hits. Marnus Labuschagne and Steve Smith have had a nice lead in playing some county cricket, and the rest of them had a soft lead in Formby, playing a bit of golf, playing a bit of cricket, and have eased their way into it. But all in all, I think they're well prepared. There'll be big question marks around Scott Boland and Josh Hazelwood, who will get that first nod. Personally, I think Scott Boland is an irresistible pick. He makes the basics look so easy and effortless, although there is a lot of magic behind what he does. He can move the ball subtly each way, and I think the way that he set up Virat Kohli in the last test match showed his class. Josh Hazelwood, I mean, he's taken 200 test wickets and he's a great guy to fall back onto, but over the last 2.5 years due to injuries, he's only played 4 tests. So I think they want to go into this first test making a statement, so I think they go with Boland, but I do think there will be some rotation going on during that series.
Well, Boland went a long way to sealing his place in the first test with an outstanding performance in the World Test Championship final against India. A lot of talk around there not being any tour games, and when you see the schedule, it's understandable why. There's simply not time, but this is a wonderful way to tune up, Ian, isn't it? Hard-fought Test cricket, and I thought it was a fabulous match.
Yeah, there's probably no better way to tune up than play a Test. And, you know, the modern cricketer is used to this system, you know, so he's used to having to adapt from, say, T20 to Test cricket very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's, I mean, it's not ideal, but I don't think it's a big argument anymore. To me, it's a simple proposition for Australia, the first Test, the selection. You've got to pick who you think are going to be the best bowlers on that pitch. Mm. Now, if you think it's Stark, Cummins and, well, it'll be Cummins, definitely. But if you think it's Stark and Hazelwood, you've got to pick him. If you think it's going to be Hazelwood and Boland, you've got to pick them. So, you know, what you know, and this is the thing about the series, both teams know how the other is going to play. You know, if Australia don't know that England is going to attack their bowlers, then I don't know what they've been watching. But they've got to decide, you know, Stark is always going to go for a few extra runs, but he's got that wicket-taking capability. And you've got to decide, what do we want? Do we want tightness or do we want wickets? So, to me, it's simple. You pick who you think is going to be the best bowler on that pitch.
Well, on that basis, I don't know whether the stats comparison between Boland and Hazelwood is relevant, but here it is anyhow. Let's just see how they stack up. There's no doubt about Josh Hazelwood being a world-class campaigner, but as Steve's pointed out there, he's played, what, 4 Tests in 2.5 years for whatever reason. What a remarkable...
How many wickets has he got at Edgbaston?
Is that a trick question?
No, it's a simple question.
I don't know.
We haven't 12.
That's the one bit of research
Steve didn't bring. We'll have to go to Brett to find that one, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all you've got to decide. Who's going to get the wickets at Edgbaston? They're not playing at the Oval, they're not playing at Lord's, they're playing at Edgbaston. Pick the team for Edgbaston. Then, second Test, worry about Lord's.
I'll tell you who will be playing for England at Edgbaston will be Stokes. He's got a fantastic record there. So I think there will be, much like Ian is saying, horses for courses selections. I'm a fan of Stark for a couple of reasons. His strike rate is as good as anyone to 250 plus wickets. We're talking about legacies in this series. He's 4 wickets behind Mitchell Johnson, you know, our leading left-arm wicket taker. I'm sure that'll be playing onto his mind. But he also offers that footholds for Nathan Lyon. England have come out and said we're going to produce flatter wickets and shorter boundaries. God knows why they've said that. Yeah. They've had success in the past and we haven't beaten them 20 years on moving seaming wickets. Now they're going to go to flatter conditions. If they do that, Mitchell Stark will create that rough outside the right-hander's eye line, which I think will play into Lyon having a successful series. And he is, of course, going to be one of those bowlers that we're going to be banking on in that Test series. Todd Murphy's there as his understudy to learn a lot, but we really are going to lean on Nathan Lyon in having a big series if Australia are going to go on and win that game.
I'm glad you brought up what England have said with respect to the pitches. As we have a look at the Australian squad there, you can see there is some backup in the fast bowling with Michael Neser, who's been playing over there and had great success at county level this year. Sean Abbott is also there, although he's not named on the official squad. I think he's part of the squad.
He's there as a backup. He's playing county cricket at the moment and doing reasonably well. Michael Neser's been brought in as cover. They originally went over with 4 quicks at Cameron Green as the extra, but the way that Cameron Green bowls, he's an out-and-out quick in himself, 6'6". He bowls that mythological heavy ball. I don't know whether that phrase was used when you played cricket, Ian, a heavy ball, but he seems to hit the splice pretty hard and get that extra bounce. So Australia, I think, have wised up and got some extra bowling depth, which I think they'll need. Last
time Australia won a series in England, 2001. By preparing flat pitches, does that not take away one of the advantages England has had in recent years, particularly against the Australian top order, which can be suspect against a moving ball, as any top order in the world probably can be?
Well, the first question I'd ask is why is a captain, or anybody for that matter, other than the curator or head groundsman, as they call them in England, why is it up to anybody else to decide what sort of pitch you're using? It should be left to the curator, and I know for a fact that when I was captain, if I'd have gone to any curator in Australia and said, I want this sort of pitch, I would have been told to bugger off and mind my own business, which is quite the correct answer. I don't know why they want, but I mean, obviously Stokes has got a reason for wanting that sort of pitch. We'll find out if he's right by the end of July.
Flat pitches will suit Steve Smith, won't they?
Well, I mean, any wicket suits. He's just got this method and hunger to score runs, and we're talking about legacy, and one thing that he wants to tick off is an Ashes series win in England. A big question mark over the Australian batting order. I mean, Smith is a banker, I guess, averages 61 in England. Travis Head hit a beautiful 100 in the ICC Test Championship, but the big question marks are over the top. The opening batters, both aged 36. We haven't had guys at that age since 1926 open the batting, both averaging less than 20 in England, but both coming in off hitting a lot of runs. Dave Warner hit the double 100 in Melbourne. Usman Khawaja set alight or reignited his Test career in Sydney with his back-to-back hundreds. But this will be a new test for him. Hasn't done so well in the past. However, I'm backing them to have adapted, grown, and show maturity to lead from the top of the order and do well over there, even though they have had, or Stuart Broad in particular, 14 times has had Dave Warner's number in previous Ashes series.
Khawaja's been the leading run scorer in world cricket by, I think it's a couple hundred runs in the last 12 months. I thought Warner's performance in the first innings in the World Test Championship showed that there's signs that there's still something there for him. They were very difficult conditions in the first session there when Australia was sent into bat. It was only a bit of bad luck that got him out, gloving one down the leg side.
Oh, he's still a very good player. And the thing about David Warner is he's a dangerous player. Yeah. If you're a captain, there are certain guys who keep you awake at night. And Dave Warner is one of those because he can not only make a big score, he can score quickly. And so they're the fellas who worry you. So if England aren't worried about David Warner, then they're silly, because they should be. But then there's the next question. It's very easy for people to say, drop Warner. Dropping someone's easy. The hard part is replacing them with someone who's better. Who are you going to replace Warner with? Marcus Harris? He's done nothing. Bancroft? Done nothing. Renshaw? I think Renshaw is probably the next best opening batsman. But, you can't put him ahead of Warner. It's ridiculous. So if Warner has a bad series in England, he knows that he could get dropped before Sydney. He knows that. So it's extra incentive for him to make some runs. And he is a good player he's a very good player, and he understands batting and his own batting, and that's important.
From someone who's played with him for a long time, what did you see in that recent performance that showed you that maybe he's coming good again?
Amen. Ian, I completely agree with you. I think that ever since I've known David, I've played cricket with him since he was 16, it's been very rare that he has long periods of not scoring runs at any level, at any stage or any format, whether it be T20, one-day cricket and Shield cricket or Test cricket. India has been maybe, a small window where he's struggled at times, little windows in the subcontinent, but he's always found ways to adapt and improve his game. He's 36 now, he's so mature, and I think he's hungry for this. Why? Because I think he wants to prove to a lot of people out there that he does have the game, not only to combat Broad, but to win Australia a series, which we haven't won in over 20 years. So I'm picking him and I'm sticking with him. I saw enough in that first innings of 44 for him to go on and show why he can do it. And I'm also backing Usman in the same way. And I also do agree that Matthew Renshaw would be my next pick as an opening batter if one or two of those were to fail.
I never thought I would see someone have as similar influence with the bat as Adam Gilchrist. Now, I know he's got a long way to go, but watching the way Travis Head has come out and counter-attacked recently, there's a Gilchrist-like feeling about it. Is that too big a stretch? I mean, he took that game away from India at the Oval in one innings.
Yeah, he's done it. He's done it a couple of times. And, yeah, I suppose there is a touch of Gilchrist about it, about the way he plays. But here again, England know, one, they know him as a player. Two, they know how he's going to play. Now, to me, one of the interesting things in this series is going to be the mental contest, because both teams know who the attacking batsmen are, who's going to attack them, and it's a matter of holding your nerve. I mean, no bowler enjoys being attacked, and some handle it better than others, and the ones that handle it well are going to help their team win. So Australia are going to know that England are going to come at them and attack. So their bowlers, you know, they have to bowl well under fire. And if they can do that, I think they'll beat England. But England also, on the opposite hand, they know head for one is going to come and attack them. So it's up to them to bowl well to head. And I think if they keep bowling well to head, they'll trouble him. But if they bowl loose deliveries to head, he'll smash them. So that's what you know, and it's how you handle that sort of pressure, whether you win or you lose.
All right, well, that's how the Australians stack up heading into the Ashes. Not a lot of sleep coming up for you at home in the next 6 weeks. All the action exclusively live here on 9 and 9 now.
One of the great rivalries in any sport. We're set to go.
On June 16, cricket's greatest rivalry. The Ashes are coming. And the only place you can catch it is on 9.
Incredible scenes.
The Ashes, exclusively on 9 and 9 now.
Yes, there are few sporting battles in the world quite like it. What was your favourite Ashes test in England, putting you on the spot?
When we beat them in 75 at Edgbaston, the same ground. And it was my favourite for the reason that England, and anybody who tries to tell you that England, and I'm not talking about their players, I'm talking about their administrators, England aren't the biggest cheats in the game, then they're joking. But the whole time I played, they had this playing condition where you could cover the pitch only at the end of the day or when the play was called off. In other words, you could cover the run-ups, but you couldn't cover the pitch while it was raining. It wasn't until... and that was there for Underwood, because Underwood on a wet pitch, impossible. So they had this playing condition, and just to make things better, that season they'd brought in, you could extend play for 1 hour, I think, at the end of the day, end of the day's play, if the weather was fine and you'd lost time. So here we are in Edgbaston. It's black as black. It doesn't rain the whole time. We get out, the 10th wicket falls, we make 350, and 10 seconds after the 10th wicket falls, whomper, down, and not English rain, Brisbane rain.
Oh, right.
And so you've got Lillian Thompson running up on dry run-ups onto a wet pitch, and strangely, we won.
Yeah.
And just to make it better, we lost 45 minutes through rain, but they added an hour at the end of the day's play, so they're still bowling on dry run-ups onto a wet pitch. 105 England got. They did well to get them.
No fatalities?
No fatalities.
Great run-ups.
And I don't think we batted in the second innings, so we bowled them out for whatever. And so we won. And I'll never forget drinking in the tent about 9 o'clock at night with Rodney Marsh, there's a shock, and Rowan Canai. And he's telling me how great the victory was. And I said, Rowan, you're married to an English woman. He said, I know, but I hate seeing them win. And I'm delighted you guys won. He was happier than us that we'd beaten them. So that's my favourite.
Would you love to have played cricket with Chappell back in the day? A few pints in the tent after play?
I can only sit there and say what I've read and heard about Chappell, but I would have been trying to find the back part of the change room and avoiding eye contact at times if I'd not performed well, because I'd heard he'd tell you straight up what he thought of you and how you'd play, which I deeply admire. One of our most successful captains as a batter. And I did want to ask Chappell, you know, you scored 2,500 runs as captain, average of 50. Ben Stokes is going to lead this English team, but we've seen the likes of Joe Root go from averaging 48 as captain. He's averaging over 60 now. What sort of, I think, Cummins-like captaincy role or pressure he'll have as captain versus Stokes being captain? Do you think there'll be an emphasis on them to perform and bowl themselves, or how do you think that will impact their play?
Well, I think you, as a captain, you do play better. Well, you should play better because you've got a bit more responsibility on you. And I think Stokes is a very good captain. And forget all the terms they're using about, what England are doing. The important thing England are doing is trying to win the game from ball number one. That's the most important thing. And Australia will know that. I think Cummins is a good captain. And I thought that before he was even appointed. And I couldn't believe people were saying, this will be a problem, fast bowling be a problem. No, it won't. He's a good captain. Yep. And if he's a sensible captain, doesn't matter whether he's... sure, it's harder as a fast bowler, but if you're a sensible captain, you'll still be okay. So I'm not surprised that Joe Root struggled because he is probably one of the worst of the major teams, the worst captains that I've ever seen. Joe should never have been appointed captain, but he was. I think Stokes will be fine. Now, whether their method comes off, that's to be seen. But what he will do, he's putting the onus on Australia, and that's a good thing. If you do something, that's the important thing in Test cricket. You've got to try and make people play differently to what they like playing. If you let good bowlers bowl the way they want to, if you let good batsmen bat the way they want to, they'll do very well. So you've got to make them. You've got to try and make them do something that they don't like.
So have a look at the England squad here. There's a couple that we particularly want to single out and get a comment from you. Steve's favourite cricketer in the world, Jack Leach, is out. Yeah. He's the second leading wicket taker in the world for the last 12 months, Jack Leach, behind Nathan Lyon. Well, you said it. Yeah. He's been replaced by Moeen Ali. He's come out of retirement.
He can't bowl against Australia either.
That's a strange one.
Australia will be delighted if they play Moeen Ali.
Well, he's the only spinner in the squad, so he's going to get a game.
Well, if they pick a spinner.
Yeah.
Well, Moeen Ali's last test, I think, was over 12 months ago. It was against Australia. He took 3 for 172, then retired. So since then, he's played no first-class cricket. He's played 95 T20s. And I guess this comes into this mentality of, well, firstly, the depth of spin bowling must be a concern in England, because if they're going back to a guy who's retired to play a test series who has battled. But I think it just goes to the form of McCullum wanting all-rounders in his squad. But he obviously sees something that we don't in Moeen, that he thinks he's ready and prepared to play Test cricket. I mean, it's going to be a big ask for him. But he does play an aggressive style of cricket. He's won with the Chennai Super Kings playing T20, and he thinks that form is good enough for him to play in a Test series.
I think Steve Smith's going to be losing sleep at Moeen Ali?
I don't think so. And I know that Nathan Lyon will be very, very happy that he'll be playing, because he had his number in Sydney many a time batting. So that takes out the all-rounder capabilities. But an interesting selection. I think Jack Leach is a big miss for them, because he has done a great holding role for the quicks in England. I mean, they've got some young quicks who are coming in. Potts, Tongue made his debut against Ireland. Again, that guy can bowl 85 miles. When you go to the UK, you talk about bowlers in miles, not kilometres, for whatever reason. But he seems to be a young quick who's on the up, a bit Wood-like. And then, of course, you've got the experience of Broad and Anderson, who have, both taken over 500 Test wickets or near enough too. So I think they've got a really well-balanced squad. How they go about playing them, whether they do decide to not play a spinner and maybe go with Joe Root, who's been getting more overs, will be a big question for Stokes and McCullum.
Just on the batting, Zach Crawley averages 30, only just 30. Duckett's done well under this new style, if you will. But their middle order is very strong, particularly Root. And look, Harry Brook might be the best player in the side, but if Australia can make inroads against the top order, that puts them under pressure. Well,
the English top order is dicey, but the one thing you do know is they'll be attacking it. And now if Crawley gets away, he's a damn good player, but he could fail as well. Harry Brook, his Test career so far has been excellent, but I think Australia can trouble him, particularly with accurate short pitch deliveries could trouble him. So I could see England having to depend on Joe Root's batting a lot, and that puts a lot on Joe Root. And I think the fact that they've gone for Bairstow as a keeper and not Folkes tells you something that they are worried about their batting. So, I think can England attack a very good Australian pace bowling lineup? Yes, they can attack them. Can they get away with it? Well, that's you know, I'm a bit dubious about that. And I think the other advantage Australia's got is they're very good at catching. They've got some excellent. Steve Smith is the main one, but they've got some very good catches. Green's very good in the gully. So I think Australia are better at catching than England. And if England drop one or two, and particularly if you drop good players, that does tend to bite you on the backside.
Can I inflame the tensions between Australia and England? I'm going to say Ben Stokes is the new Mike Brearley. He didn't bat or bowl against Ireland. Yeah. He's just there as a... And he may not bowl during the series. This knee of his is a real problem.
Wash your mouth out, man.
I knew you'd like that one.
I mean, Stokes is a hell of a good cricketer. Mike Brearley... I mean, I used to say to people, it's hard enough to win 11 versus 11. But when you're playing 10 versus 11, that's making it extremely difficult.
Sorry to interrupt, Ian, that you can see a picture there of that huge brace on his knee. So I would imagine he'll only bowl when absolutely necessary, if necessary.
Well, I tell you what will be a problem for England if they resort to that tactic of bouncer barrage.
Yeah.
That's a bad tactic. Now, do it occasionally. I'm talking now as a batsman. The biggest thing that worries you as a batsman is when's the bouncer coming. Not knowing when it's coming is probably one of the worst things. If you know you're getting 6 and over, then you get used to it. So maybe you might do it for an over to let the guy know this is coming, mate, but then just occasionally. Australia resorted to, if you go back to that India test in Brisbane, and they did it in Sydney, a bouncer barrage. And, I mean, how Cummins fronted up for the second new ball, I'll never know. He's got a huge heart. Stark was gone because he'd spent all his energy bowling short. If you're going to do that, even if it's Mark Wood bowling really quickly, it's a stupid tactic if you do it all the time. Do it every now and again, but the important thing is make the bouncers, you know, online. Make the batsman have to do something. Don't have bouncers over here or over here. At here, then it's a problem, especially if it's here.
DK Lilly style.
Well,
right at him.
Dennis wasn't early on, but, you know, I said to him, I remember, I said, Andy Roberts makes me do something every time he bowls a short ball. Can we please return the favour? And that's when I think Dennis became a better bouncer bowler because he became more accurate.
And you never had that problem with Jeff Thompson, did you? He was happy just to bang him in short whenever he had the ball.
Well, you see, Tomo's bouncers went all over there, but the one that went here...
They'd hit bat pad, wouldn't they, some of his bumpers?
I mean, Tomo was the fastest I ever saw, you know, and he had that ability, particularly in Australia, to go from short of a length to there. And let me tell you, anything here that's not short is difficult.
Well, it does lend itself to, you know, Jofra Archer is a big miss. And, of course, in the last Ashes series that we played in England, it was, you know, it befell Steve Smith, but also came to rise for Marnus Labuschagne, who then came in and is now ranked #1 in the world. And I guess I want to go back to the batters that England have and look at Duckett. And Brendan McCullum, I found this fascinating as coach. He came out and said his skill set is not to be consistent, but can win matches for England. So that's a sort of style that he wants at the top of the order to play. Harry Brook is an excitement machine. Over the last 12 months, since 2022, he hadn't played international cricket at all. Now he's been hitting centuries, and it's not necessarily how many centuries he's hit, it's the way he's going about it. I think the Pakistan series was unbelievable. It's a runner ball. And these young players who are coming into Test cricket aren't finding their feet. They're relentless and they're fearless. And I think McCullum is encouraging that in his playing group, so when they do come up against the bowling attack of Australia, that they still embed on what they've been doing and they can follow it up into the main series, which is the Ashes.
Well, I've given you my first headline. Ben Stokes is the new Mike Brearley. What are your 3 headlines for the Ashes?
I think have they come up? Have we got them on the big screen anywhere?
Well, you get rolling. We'll put them up.
Okay,
Here we go.
I've got one for you. Boland's basics baffles Bazball. So I think that Scotty Boland at the moment. You know, we talk about cricket being a simple game. And I think one thing that Scotty Boland has done and worked really hard in Shield cricket over the last 10 years is just hit the top of off stump. But it's not necessarily just the same ball all the time. It's a little bit in, it's a little bit away, but he'll challenge the knee roll and the forward defence. And I think the game can get very complicated at times But Boland's basics, I think, is what Pat Cummins does well, and I think is what Josh Hazelwood does well, and I think will be key to the Australians having success.
And with the Duke's ball too, he nibbles it around a bit more than he would here in Australia. He's a lot smarter, and there's a lot more guile behind his bowling than I initially thought when I first saw Boland. I thought he was a trundler. He's a bit better than that.
He burst onto the scene with 6 for 7, but I think the way that he set Virat Kohli up in the 4 balls early on, there was a lot of research that went into that. You know, he went wobble seam in, a little bit away, and then the fuller wide one, you know, getting him reaching out of hands. And Steve Smith and the team would have been prepared that that's a way of getting Virat Kohli out, because in team meetings we've had in the past, that's exactly what we've said. He's susceptible to a wide full one. If he gets to 20 and gets away, good luck trying to catch him, but he is susceptible. And it's just great how they're all connected. And that catch from Steve Smith, as Ian has said, with the slips cordon that we have, they stay connected as a team and take every catch. They'll go a long way to winning the series. But I think Boland's basics might defeat Bazball.
And what's your last headline? Are you picking on the age of the English cricket team, Steve?
This
Dad's Army.
Yes.
Oh, no, you're talking about the Aussies.
Yes, I'm talking about the Aussie. Dad's Army leaves London with legacy.
Oh, there you go.
So we're looking at an ageing team. We're looking at a few players in this team that may not come back and play an Ashes series in England, the likes of Hazelwood, Smith, Warner, Khawaja. I think these guys are going over and want to make a statement. They don't want to leave their careers thinking that we've had a drawn series and retain the Ashes. They'll want to win. They are an ageing team. In saying that, there are some great young players coming through. I can add Nathan Lyon into the mix. Is this his last Ashes series? Who knows? But this team, I think, will be wanting to make a statement, particularly after winning the ICC Championship. You know, there'll be questions around this team. They've won the ICC Test Championship, but we're yet to beat India in India. And India beat us twice at home and twice away. We have beaten them in that one-off test, but we've got to beat England away. We haven't done it for 20 years, and this will be integral to the legacy of this side, and I think to Pat Cummins' captaincy.
OK. Australia to win, Chappell?
Yeah, I think Australia will win the series because I think their bowlers will handle the attack that they're going to face better, and Australia will catch better. And Australia's got some batsmen there who are likely to make runs in this series. So, you know, I don't know how the series will go games-wise because you don't know about the weather, but I think Australia will win the series.
Well, the forecast is good for the first test. So that's the most important thing immediately. What about you, Steve?
Look, I'm tipping an Australian win. I'll be as bold as Nathan Lyon and say 5-0. It always bewilders me when they ask a player what they think the series outcome will be, and I'm like, OK, or 3-2. It's like, well, which 2 do you intend on losing, and which 3 do you want to win? So I think it's going to be a close contest. The anticipation is at the highest levels I've had for an Ashes series since 2005 as a youngster watching the game. I just think that the way that Brendan McCullum and Stokes have gone about playing the game, it's reinvigorated Test cricket to a certain extent. The way they played against Ireland in a 4-day Test match almost proved that there is potential for 4-day Test match cricket down the line. And I think Australia's basics and simplifying the game against a new way of playing the game in essence is going to be an exciting contest to watch.
Lovely to catch up with you both.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing your work over the next 6 weeks or so. And, of course, catch every ball of the Ashes on 9 and 9 now, plus full recaps after every day's play, the minis on the 9 Now app. It's a must when you get up in the morning if you can't stay up all night, like most people can't. See you guys soon. Enjoy the Ashes.